The popular explanations of the symbols of Masonry are fitting for the multitude that have swarmed into the temples, being fully up to the level of their capacity. That's a quote from Albert Pike, and it definitely sets a certain tone, doesn't it? A bit provocative, maybe.
Oh, absolutely. Pike wasn't one to mince words. That quote really encapsulates his view on, let's say, levels of understanding.
And it's a perfect starting point for us today. Welcome to the deep dive. We're diving headfirst into a really big one, Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma of the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. It's famous, maybe infamous, and definitely misunderstood.
It really is a monumental work. And Pike himself, what a figure. Born 1809, raised Christian, incredibly bright, passed the Harvard entrance exam at 15, though, well, life got in the way and he didn't end up attending.
Wow, 15.
Yeah, he went on to be an editor, a lawyer, even a general. Settled down in Arkansas, large family, 11 kids, just a really complex, multifaceted life. And Morals and Dogma, published in 1871, it's not like a list of rules for Masons, not at all.
Right, it's much bigger than that.
It's this vast, sprawling philosophical journey, a guide, really, for members moving up through the Masonic degrees. He pulls together just an incredible amount of stuff, Kabalah, Plato, ancient Egyptian ideas, Persian cosmology, all woven into this symbolic moral framework. It's dense.
Absolutely. And that's our mission here today, to unpack Pike's unique blend of all these ancient philosophies, symbols, and moral ideas. We want to dig into his insights about, the human condition, God, the search for truth. And the amazing thing is how these ideas, centuries old, can still hit you with these aha moments today.
They really can.
So we're trying to get past the surface level stuff, grasp what Pike was really trying to communicate to the initiates, and hopefully help you, the listener, make sense of this complex material, distill it down into something useful, something you can actually take away, give you a shortcut to understanding this influential text.
Sounds like a plan. It's a big task, but worth it.
Okay, let's start digging.
The Esoteric Path, Unveiling Masonic Degrees and Hidden Truths.
So first off, Morals and Dogma isn't just a book you pick up and read cover to cover casually. Its structure is key.
Definitely. It's organized around the Masonic degrees. Apprentice, Philocraft, Master, all the way up to the 32nd degree, Master of the Royal Secret.
And these aren't just like ranks or titles.
Not at all. Pike presents each degree as a distinct step. It's a progressive journey, intellectual, moral. Each stage is meant to deepen your understanding. Of the universe, yes, but maybe even more importantly, of yourself.
It suggests that truth isn't just handed to you all at once.
Exactly. That's central to Pike. He believed truth reveals itself in layers. He actually says all religious expression is symbolism, since we can describe only what we see, and the true objects of religion are the unseen.
The unseen, so symbols are the bridge.
They are. He called symbols the earliest instruments of education, like the first universal language, before even words were written down precisely. He even argues that all language is symbolic.
All language, that's a big claim.
It is. He points out, to utter it a word to you does not inform you of the exact meaning which it has to me. Think about that. It means language itself can be a source of misunderstanding. He suggests that a lot of disputes in religion and philosophy are basically arguments over what words mean.
Wow. That really makes you think about communication differently, like how much gets lost in translation even when we think we're being clear.
Precisely. And he gives this great example of the word hail in the English Rite. You might think it means hello or where are you from?
Yeah, seems straightforward.
But Pike traces it back to the Anglo-Saxon helan, which means to cover, hide, or conceal.
Completely different meaning.
Right. It flips it entirely. Shows how language evolves, and sometimes that evolution hides the original, deeper meaning that initiates would have understood. The meaning becomes concealed over time.
Which brings up the big question. Why use symbols and allegory in the first place? Why not just state the truth plainly, if it's so important?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Pike gives a pretty direct, maybe even stark answer. He says, fictions are necessary to the people, and the truth becomes deadly to those who are not strong enough to contemplate it in all its brilliance.
Deadly. That sounds intense.
It does. But I think he means deadly in the sense of overwhelming or potentially destructive if you're not prepared for it. It implies this need for layers. The popular explanations, he says, are fine for the multitude, for those just starting out.
Okay, like an introductory level.
Exactly. But for the adept, the serious student, there's a more recondite and fruitful meaning. hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered through effort and understanding.
So it's about readiness, revealing truth slowly as you become capable of handling it. It reminds me of that quote he uses from Synesius, the bishop of Ptolemais. Something about the people mocking things they don't understand.
Yes. The people will always mock at things, easy to be misunderstood. It must needs have impostures. And impostures there doesn't mean lies or trickery in a malicious way.
More like necessary veils, simplifications.
Precisely. It's like protecting profound ideas from being dismissed or distorted by those who aren't ready to grasp their full depth. Presenting them raw might just lead to ridicule. So allegory becomes a kind of protective covering.
That makes a certain kind of sense. It's a teaching method, really.
It is. And this method is fundamental to Pike's whole approach. He pulls from everywhere. He's not stuck in one tradition. He talks about how all the philosophers and legislators that made antiquity illustrious were pupils of the initiation. He mentions Zoroaster from Persia, Confucius from China.
So he saw this hidden wisdom as universal.
Pretty much. He believed all these different ancient traditions were tapping into the same core truths, guiding initiates along a similar path.
Okay, so we've got this idea of layered truth, symbolic language, and a universal ancient wisdom. Let's get into some specific symbols now. Let's see how Pike decodes them.
Right. Let's peel back some layers.
Decoding key Masonic symbols more than meets the eye.
Okay, let's start with a couple of really well-known Masonic symbols, the blazing star and the all-seeing eye. Pike mentions the French Masons put the blazing star in the center of the lodge.
Yes. And often, the simple explanation is that it represents the sun, or maybe prudence, which means foresight, wisdom.
Seems reasonable enough. But knowing Pike,
There's always more. He connects it directly to omniscience, or the all-seeing eye. For the ancient Egyptians, that eye was a powerful symbol of Osiris, the creator.
okay, so divine awareness.
Exactly. But then he adds another layer, a Kabbalistic one. When the Hebrew letter Yod, or Eud, as Pike spells, it is placed in the center of the star.
Yod, what does that signify?
Yod is the first letter of the sacred name of God in Kabbalah. It represents the initial spark, the point of divine energy. Pike says it's the divine energy manifested as light, creating the universe.
Wow. So the star isn't just a star anymore.
Not at all. With Yod inside, it becomes this symbol of the divine creative impulse itself, radiating out from what Pike calls the circle of immensity. That circle represents the unmanifested deity, the absolute who has no name, the ultimate unknowable source.
That's a lot packed into one symbol. From prudence to the creation of the universe.
It really shows how these symbols function for Pike. They're like portals to huge philosophical ideas meant to trigger deeper thought, not just provide simple answers.
Okay, let's take another one. The point within a circle. The Rite explanation sounds pretty straightforward, right? The point is the individual Mason, the circle is the boundary of his conduct.
Yeah, a neat moral lesson. Keep yourself in check.
But Pike
Basically dismisses that. He says it's not to interpret the symbols of Masonry. Too simple misses the historical depth.
So what's his interpretation?
He points out it was a common ancient Egyptian symbol for the sun and Osiris, the active creative force again. And predictably, he brings in Kabalah.
Let me guess, the point is Yod again.
You got it. The point is Yod, the creative energy of God, irradiating with light the circular space which God, the universal light, left vacant, wherein to create the worlds.
Wait, left vacant. God left a space.
Yes, it's that idea of creation by withdrawal we touched on. God, the infinite light, pulls back from a central point, creating a void or space, a where for the universe to come into being. It's a mind-bending concept.
It really is. Creation by absence, almost.
And Pike also critiques the later additions to this symbol, the two parallel lines for St. John the Baptist and St. John the Evangelist with the Bible on top.
Yeah, you see that version a lot.
He calls them incongruous additions that denaturalized the original meaning. He suspects that those lines probably originally meant something more universal, maybe like the two pillars, Jachin and Boaz, representing balance, not specific Christian saints.
He's really stripping things back to what he sees as the original universal meaning. Fascinating. Okay, what are the jewels of the lodge? You have the movable ones, square, level, plumb, and the immovable ones, rough ashlar, perfect ashlar, tracing board.
Right. And the York Rite gives moral meanings for the movable ones. The square for morality, the level for equality, the plumb for rectitude or upright conduct.
Basic virtues. Important, but maybe surface level for Pike.
Well, they're foundational, but the real philosophical weight for Pike is in the immovable jewels, especially the ashlars. The rough ashlar is us, basically. Unworked stone, raw human nature, unrefined.
Then the perfect ashlar, the smooth cube.
That's the goal. But it's more than just being well-behaved. Pike equates the perfect ashlar, the cubical stone, with the foundation of the absolute philosophy, the supreme and unalterable reason.
So it's about achieving perfect reason.
It's about building that foundation within yourself. He says we need to separate our certainties from our beliefs, really know what we know versus what we just think or believe. That polished stone is the perfected character, honed by hard work, intellectual, moral, spiritual work. It's the solid base for a life built on truth.
It's an active process then, shaping yourself.
Exactly, it's self-construction.
Okay, one more set of symbols before we move on. Jachin and Boaz. The two pillars at the temple entrance, they look imposing. What's their significance?
Hugely significant for Pike. They represent the equilibrium of contraries and the resultant harmony. This idea of balance between opposites is absolutely core to his thinking.
Harmony from opposites, like stability from tension.
Precisely. Think of it like forces pulling against each other, but creating stability because they're balanced. In a Christian context, he says, they might stand for faith and good works.
Okay.
The Pike connects them again to Kabalah, to the Sephiroth, the divine emanations. He mentions Hakama on one side, Baina on the other, and Kether over them. Wisdom, active, and understanding, passive, balanced by the crown, divine will above.
So cosmic balance.
Yes. And this isn't a static balance, it's dynamic, an alternating preponderance of forces. He argues this equilibrium is essential not just for the individual's soul, but for stable government, for society, for the universe itself. These pillars aren't just gateposts, they're symbols of the fundamental law of existence, harmony through balanced opposition.
It really shows how these Masonic symbols, in Pike's view, are like keys unlocking these vast philosophical concepts about how the world and the divine actually work.
Exactly. Which leads us nicely into exploring how Pike and the ancients he studied thought about God and the structure of the cosmos.
Exploring the divine ancient cosmologies and the nature of God.
So yeah, moving from these specific symbols, it's clear Pike was wrestling with the big questions about God, the ultimate source. He often talks about the absolute who has no name, or a first cause. Very transcendent language.
Very much so. He's not talking about a small, easily defined deity. He draws heavily on Kabalah here. God isn't pictured as a person, but as a most occult light, AUR. And crucially, AUR isn't just light itself, but the substance out of which light flows.
The source of light, not just the light.
Exactly. It's the phos noetan light, knowable only by the intellect, not by the eyes. It suggests the ultimate reality is something you grasp spiritually, intellectually, not physically see.
And this connects back to that idea of creation by withdrawal.
It does. Pike describes the Kabbalistic idea. Before creation, this supreme light was infinitely extended, everywhere. Then, the divine will decided to create. So, the light receded in every direction from a particular central point.
Pulled back.
Pulled back, yes. Leaving a certain vacuum, a space, as Pike puts it, wherein emanations might be. Think about the creation starts not with an explosion outwards, but an intentional pulling inwards. A self-limitation by God to make room for existence.
That's fundamentally different from how most people probably think about creation. It implies a kind of divine humility almost.
It's a profound concept. And it sets the stage for understanding the inherent duality Pike saw in existence. That quote you mentioned earlier, the harmony of the universe is a combination of contraries, like the strings of a lyre.
Right. So how does this play out? What are these contraries?
Pike shows this idea was everywhere in the ancient world. The concept of two principles, active and passive. Think Egypt. Osiris as the sun, active, good. Isis as the moon, passive, fertile. Or sometimes Osiris versus Typhon, good versus evil, light versus darkness.
And the Persians.
Ormuzd and Ahriman. Ormuzd is light and good. Ahriman is darkness and evil. Pike notes, light was Ormuzd, darkness Ahriman, origin of all evils.
So a constant struggle.
A struggle, yes, but Pike emphasizes that it's the equilibrium between these opposing forces that creates harmony and movement. It's not about one side totally wiping out the other. It's the dynamic tension, the interplay that drives everything. Like tuning the lyre too tight or too loose, no music. The balance is key.
Okay, but if you have these fundamental opposites, especially good and evil, light and darkness, it inevitably brings up that huge theological problem. Why does evil exist? If there's a good, all-powerful God, why allow it?
The age-old question. And Pike dives right into how the ancients tackled it. The Persians, with their two gods, Ormuz and Ahriman, basically externalized the conflict.
But as Pike points out, that still doesn't answer why a supreme god would allow Ahriman, right?
Exactly. It pushes the question back. So Pike explores other ideas from his sources. One major one. God has allowed evil solely to furnish man with the means of exercising his free will.
Ah, the free will defense. Evil is necessary for us to choose good authentically.
That's the essence of it. Without the possibility of choosing wrong, choosing right doesn't mean much. Another perspective he presents is even more challenging. If the deity had not created worlds and then destroyed them, there could have been no evil. But all things must have been good.
Suggesting evil is somehow inherent in the process of creation and destruction itself.
Potentially. That the very act of creating separate things, things that change and decay, introduces imperfection and thus the possibility of evil. This leads to the rather stark conclusion he quotes. God created evils to afflict them withal when they should sin, and light and blessing to reward the just.
So evil isn't arbitrary punishment, but more like a built-in consequence within the system.
That seems to be the implication. Pike connects it to divine attributes and natural law. He says, the evil is the shadow of the good and inseparable from it. Like you can't have light without shadow.
And that fire analogy.
Right. The fire would not warm if it could not also burn. Beneficial properties often have potentially harmful aspects.
It's
inherent. So for Pike, evil isn't proof God is weak or absent. It's part of the fundamental nature of a dynamic reality where choices matter and qualities have dual potentials.
It's a tough concept, but it frames evil as part of the cosmic structure, not just a mistake.
Exactly. And understanding this cosmic drama, this interplay of forces, naturally leads us to consider the human role within it all, our journey, our responsibilities.
The human experiment, soul, morality, and responsibility.
Right, so bringing it down from the cosmic to the personal. Pike talks a lot about the soul's journey, this idea that we come from somewhere else, are here for a time, and are trying to get back.
It's a very powerful ancient idea. He blends Platonic and Kabbalistic views beautifully here. The core belief. The soul originates in heaven, the holy region of pure spirit. Then it descends.
Defends why? Willingly. Or is it forced?
Different traditions had different takes. Pike mentions Macrobius, a Roman philosopher, describing the soul undergoing 3 degradations, or deaths, as it passes through celestial spheres, becoming more entangled in matter, more and more gross, until it inhabits a body.
Like putting on heavier and heavier clothes.
What? That's a good analogy. And the Kabbalists elaborated this with their 4 worlds: Azaluth, closest to God, Briarth, Jezerath, and finally Aziath, our physical world. Souls descend through these, maybe by divine order staying pure, or sometimes through their own fault, by losing focus on the divine and getting attached to the material.
So there's an element of choice or falling involved.
In some interpretations, yes. But the key takeaway Pike emphasizes is what this implies about us. The divine nature and longings after immortality of the soul, of the nobility of its origin, the grandeur of its destiny. It tells you that you're fundamentally more than just physical matter. There's a divine spark in you, always yearning for its source.
A reminder of our higher potential. So while we're on this journey, this earthly experience, how are we supposed to navigate it? Pike mentions 3 guides: reason, love, and faith.
Yes, crucial guides for the fellowcraft stage, and really for anyone seeking wisdom. In your studies, you must be guided by reason, love, and faith.
How do they work together? Because sometimes reason and faith seem opposed.
That's the critical point balance. Pike lived after the age of reason, and he saw its limitations. He warns, reason is at fault when it deals with the infinite. There, we must revere and believe. Reason alone can't grasp ultimate reality.
So reason needs companions.
Exactly. Love or loving kindness must keep it company. Why? To prevent reason from becoming cold, intolerant, fanatical. Love adds the human element, the compassion, and then faith. A faith is a necessity to man. Woe to him who believes nothing.
Faith is a necessity, not just an option.
For Pike, yes. Not blind belief, but a fundamental trust, especially when reason hits its limits or life seems unjust. So the relationship is like this. Reason must hold the helm, steering the ship. But these love and faith supply the motive power. They are the wings of the soul.
Wings? Nice image. Steering and propulsion working together.
Precisely. He wanted to reconcile these apparent opposites: reason and faith, authority and liberty, science and belief. He saw them like the 2 pillars, Jachin and Boaz-again. They need to stand separated and be parallel to support the temple of a well-lived life. Each has its domain, neither should crush the other.
A dynamic balance again. It seems to be a constant theme.
It really is.
But even with these guides, our actions have consequences. Pike seems really emphatic about the permanence of our deeds.
Oh, incredibly so. He talks about a kind of natural law of cause and effect. Wrong and injustice once done cannot be undone, but are eternal in their consequences. And he clarifies, punishment is not the execution of a sentence, but the occurrence of an effect, an ordinary and logical consequence.
So not God zapping you, but the natural result of your actions unfolding.
That's the idea, like
Yeah.
ripples in a pond. And the ripples spread incredibly far. He says, the unconsidered act of the poorest of men may fire the train that leads to the subterranean mine, and an empire be rent by the explosion.
Wow. That's a heavy responsibility. Even small actions matter hugely.
They do. He even extends this to words. He suggests the air itself is like a vast library where everything ever said or whispered is forever written, that the vibrations continue indefinitely.
That's mind-boggling and a bit scary, honestly. Makes you want to watch every word.
It certainly encourages mindfulness. And it means that while repentance is crucial for changing your future path, it is valid to secure the future, not to obliterate the past. The past actions, the ripples, remain.
You can't unring the bell.
Pretty much. Which leads to another fascinating area, the power Pike attributes to human thought and will.
Right. He doesn't just see thoughts as fleeting things in our heads.
No, he calls a human thought an actual existence, and a force and power. Capable of acting on matter and mind, he even suggests thought is immortal, flashing into the soul. Thoughts have real substance and power.
And the will.
He calls volition spontaneous, an effect without a cause, a primary power within us. This will can act on others, shape events, legislate for men and nations. It's a core creative force in humanity.
So harnessing this will combined with reason is key.
Absolutely. He says the absolute in reason and will is the greatest power which it is given to men to attain. And get this, he claims it's through this power that miracles are performed.
Miracles. Through human will and reason.
That's what he suggests. Not supernatural magic breaking laws, but the result of a perfectly focused will operating in harmony with the deeper, often hidden laws of nature. It's about achieving an extraordinary level of internal alignment and power.
Inner mastery leading to outer effects.
But really,
It really is. And these individual struggles, these powers of thought and will, they don't happen in a vacuum. They play out within the context of society. Society and the search for the ideal Pike's social and political vision.
okay, so let's look at Pike's vision for society. If individual responsibility and inner work are so important, how does that translate to the collective? He talks about the foundations: liberty, equality, justice. He says liberty is the summit, equality the base. What did he mean by equality? It's a tricky word.
It is, and he's careful to define it. He explicitly says it's not about everyone being the same, not a society of big spears of grass and stunted oaks. That's not it.
So not forced uniformity.
No. For Pike, equality means specific things. Civilly, all aptitudes having equal opportunity. Politically, all votes having equal weight. Religiously, all consciences having equal rights. It's about fairness, equal access, equal standing under law, equal freedom of conscience, a level playing field, essentially.
Sure, that's clearer. Equal opportunity, not necessarily equal outcome. And what enables this?
Education, enlightenment, instruction, light. All comes from light and all returns to it. He strongly believed that the improvement of the mass of the people is the grand security for popular liberty. An educated public is the best defense against tyranny.
And justice. He puts that on a high pedestal.
The highest. He says justice is not a consequence because we cannot ascend to any principle above it. It's fundamental, like a law of the moral universe. But crucially, it's not just about strictly applying legal rules. He argues for justice infused with sympathy, compassion, seeing ourselves in the great circle of humanity, rigid legalism without empathy. He compares it to the gates of hell in Dante, abandon hope. True justice needs heart.
A society grounded in light, opportunity, and compassionate justice sounds ideal. But Pike was also very aware of the dangers, wasn't he? He had some sharp critiques.
Oh, absolutely. He didn't pull punches. He critiques despotism, obviously.
Yeah.
He uses Rome as an example, saying it smells worse under Vitellius than under Sulla, meaning tyranny just gets more corrupt over time. And he points out that, ironically, it is the force of the people that sustains all these despotisms. Tyrants manipulate the people's own energy to enslave them.
But he also criticized democracy. That might surprise some people.
He did. He said 2 forms of government are favorable to the prevalence of falsehood and deceit. One is despotism, the other is democracy.
Wait, democracy?
Because, he argued, in a democracy, people can resort to falsehood as a means of attaining popularity in office and because of the greed for wealth. He warned very starkly, when office and wealth become the gods of a people, the land will reek with falsehood and sweat lies and chicane.
Wow, that sounds disturbingly relevant sometimes.
It does have a certain resonance. He worried about materialism, this age of iron, he called it, where people worship gods of wood and iron and brass, like the steam engine, the technology of his day. He feared society was losing its soul, lost a larger world than it has gained in its focus on material progress.
A warning against forgetting deeper values. He also cautioned against misplaced trust, didn't he? Like hero worship.
Yes, strongly. He warned against blind, unreasoning, unquestioning hero worship and political factions whose sole end is the spoils of victory. Partisan politics purely for gain. His advice: men may betray, principles never can. Trust enduring principles, not fallible people or self-serving groups.
Sound advice. And his view on war.
Utterly devastating. He saw it as a complete disaster, not just the physical destruction, but the moral corruption it breeds, wrath and revenge and base pride. The squandering of resources and cutting into the veins and arteries of human life. He paints a truly grim picture of the human cost, the size of bereavement. It's a powerful anti-war statement.
So, given all these societal dangers and complexities, what is the role of Masonry in Pike's view? How does it aim to make things better without getting sucked into the problems it identifies?
That's key. Pike insists Masonry is action and not inertness. It demands work actively and earnestly for the benefit of their brethren, their country, and mankind. It's about positive contribution.
And what are its guiding principles for that action?
Propagating enlightened faith, fostering fraternity fruitful of good works, promoting indulgence and peace, offering sweet hopes and effectual consolations, but also demanding inflexibility in the accomplishment of duties, even hard ones. Its core, he says, is simple: love of God and love of neighbor.
Love of God and neighbor sounds straightforward.
But profound in application. And importantly, he stresses Masonry should not be about political plots or conspiracies. It is not the mission of Masonry to engage in plots against the civil government. It promotes ideals like liberty, equality, fraternity, but it isn't tied to any specific political system, whether republicanism or constitutional monarchy.
So it works on the individual level, aiming to improve people who will then improve society.
That's the core idea. Instill the principles, cultivate reason, love, and faith in the individual, and trust that this will lead to a better world, whatever the political structure. It stays above the partisan fray, focusing on the inner work.
And this idea of inner work, of transformation, it leads us perfectly into alchemy, doesn't it? Which Pike saw in a very specific, non-literal way.
Exactly. The royal art. Not about gold, but about perfecting the self.
The royal art alchemy as a path to self-perfection.
All right, alchemy. This is where things get really symbolic, maybe even a bit strange for some listeners. Images of wizards trying to make gold. But Pike saw Hermetic science, or alchemy, very differently.
He absolutely did. It's crucial to get past the literal gold-making idea, which he largely saw as a veil or allegory anyway. He defines Hermetic science as the Kabalah in active realization, or the magic of works.
Kabalah in action, magic of works. What does that mean?
It means taking those deep, mystical, Kabbalistic principles about God, the universe, and the soul, and actually applying them, putting them into practice. He talks about 3 levels or degrees of this realization: religious, philosophical, and physical.
Okay, break those down.
Religious realization is about building your inner empire and priesthood, achieving spiritual sovereignty. Philosophical is about finding absolute doctrine, establishing a solid foundation of truth within yourself. And the physical degree isn't about manipulating external matter so much as applying the creative law to yourself, to your own being, constantly working towards self-perfection.
So the great work of alchemy is really inner work.
That's the heart of it for Pike.
Yeah.
It's self-transformation.
So the philosopher's stone, that legendary thing, it's not a literal stone.
Not in the way most people think. Pike says the philosopher's stone is the foundation of the absolute philosophy, the supreme and unalterable reason. It's the attainment of perfect, unshakable inner truth and wisdom.
How do you find it then? Or make it?
Through intense inner work. The alchemical instruction to separate the subtle from the fixed with great care and extreme attention. Pike interprets this psychologically and philosophically. It means meticulously distinguishing our certainties from our beliefs, knowing what's real from what's just opinion or prejudice. It's about purification of the mind. He says bluntly, a man who is the slave of prejudices will never become the king of nature and the master of transmutations.
So overcoming your own biases is step 1.
A huge step, and here's the empowering part. Pike says, we all possess that chemical instrument, the great and single athanor or furnace. We already have the tool needed for this transformation.
And that
Our
is,
own intelligence, our mind. He says the sedges represented this inner furnace with the pentagram or star with 5 points, the absolute sign of human intelligence. Your own discerning mind is the crucible where you refine yourself.
that's really profound. The power is already within us. We just need to learn how to use it for this alchemy.
Exactly. So all those complex alchemical stages, calcination, dissolution, separation, conjunction, fermentation, distillation, coagulation, they become metaphors for stages of inner development.
Like turning the rough ashlar into the perfect ashlar, the cubical stone.
Precisely. The cubical stone, perfectly balanced, represents that stable, perfected state you achieve through this inner work. And the flaming star we talked about earlier, that now signifies the final state, the bright and shining tincture, the illuminated self, capable of transmuting metals, which symbolically means transforming your own base nature into spiritual gold, and maybe even helping uplift others.
And he mentions a double marriage. What's that about?
Ah, yes, the union of the white woman with the red servitor to create a most potent king. Symbolically, it often represents the integration of opposing principles within maybe passive and active, nature and art, feminine and masculine energies, achieving a complete, balanced, sovereign self. The king is the fully realized individual.
So again, it comes back to balance and integration.
Always. The ultimate aim, Pike suggests, is a kind of rebirth, a revivification through the tree of life, another Kabbalistic symbol. It's reaching a point where matter will then no longer have power over you. You become spiritually liberated, even while still in the physical world. You eventually give back the physical body and take on one altogether spiritual.
Not necessarily literal immortality, but spiritual mastery over the material.
That seems to be the core of it. It's about winning the greatest battle, as Pike calls it, the inner battle of our spiritual natures against our sensual appetites and evil passions. It's the conscious, ongoing work of refining yourself, transmuting your own lead into gold, becoming the master of your own inner kingdom. That's the real royal art.
A powerful reinterpretation of alchemy, shifting it from external magic to internal mastery. Outro. Wow, we have covered a lot of ground today. Journeying through Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma is, well, it's intense. We've gone from Masonic symbols and degrees to deep dives into God, the cosmos, the soul's journey, societal critiques, and even spiritual alchemy.
It's incredibly dense, incredibly rich tapestry. Pike weaves together so many threads, Kabbalah, Plato, Egypt, Persia, into this complex, challenging path towards understanding yourself and the world. It's demanding, no doubt about it.
But you see these core themes repeating, don't you? That idea of harmony from balanced opposites keeps coming up.
Constantly. That and the need for both reason and faith in the quest for truth. Plus, the huge weight of individual responsibility, the idea that our actions echo eternally, and always this call to active work, perfecting yourself, contributing to the world.
It really transcends just being about Freemasonry, doesn't it? It taps into these universal human questions, that eternal search for meaning.
Absolutely. It's a monument to that quest, packed with ancient wisdom, reframed for, well, for his time, but still incredibly relevant for ours.
Now, Pike ends the entire massive work with this really potent, very short Latin phrase about the true royal secret, the core of Masonic brotherhood. He says, Gloria Dei est celere verbum amen. The glory of God is to conceal the word.
A fascinating, almost paradoxical ending after hundreds of pages of explanation.
Right. So what does that imply? Is the ultimate truth something that can't be spoken directly? Is the glory in the seeking the uncovering rather than the final answer being simply handed over?
It leaves you thinking, doesn't it?
It really does. And it throws a challenge straight to you, the listener. In our world, where information is everywhere, overwhelming us constantly, what does it mean to seek a hidden word? How might you start looking past the noise, past the easy answers, to uncover the deeper, maybe veiled truths in your own life that hold real power for transformation and self-mastery?
A question worth pondering.
Definitely something to think about. We hope this deep dive has given you some tools and perspectives for your own journey. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.